teach you about dollars while making you laugh. When it comes to money, don't be slackers. Listen to Galia and Susan, Susan and Galia. Galia and Susan, they're the Fiscal Firecrackers. Yeah. Take it, ladies.
Boom! We're taking it. Pow! God, that theme song just makes me feel so alive.
Really, it energizes me.
Big time. I love it. Okay, guys, I am wearing my winter coat that has roses on it and parrots on it. It's a little chilly here. And I am Susan.
And I'm Galia.
And we are the Fiscal Firecrackers. This is the show where we have a blast while we're learning to make our money last. So, guys, I'm Susan Yeagley, and I was born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee, and now I live in Los Angeles, which is strange because I'm wearing a winter coat, but I promise I live in Los Angeles. I followed my dream to break into showbiz, and now I'm happily living here as a mommy, a spousey, and an actress. I've always been fascinated by money, especially when I was in my 20s and I had none. So just like you, I want to earn it. I want to learn all about it, and I want to watch it grow. So today, let's just jump in and turn those fried green tomatoes into greenbacks. Let's take our hot buttermilk biscuits dripping with coins and honey and bitcoins and dollars, and let's throw them onto the gravy train. Take it, Galia.
Okay. Woo! Hard act to follow. So the question is, are you wearing sandals with that coat? Because that would really make you LA.
I have no pants on, just a winter coat.
There we go. I am Galia Gishan. I've studied in money and finance my whole career. To me, money is a tool for financial independence for everyone, but especially for women. I started my career on Wall Street with top New York City investment banks for nearly 10 years and have an undergraduate degree and an MBA in finance. My business, Down to Earth Finance, provides independent financial planning, and I've been teaching that at universities and to freelancers for many years. I'm also an active angel investor. I see so many really interesting companies that focus on women-led startups and impact startups, and I recently published my first novel, The Accidental Suffragist. Consider me your financial fairy godmother. Now let's get this financial fiesta started.
All right, fairy godmother, let's go.
Let's go. So today, Susan and I are so excited about this topic.
Psyched.
We are going to talk about keeping up with the Joneses. So we've all been there. You think everyone has more money than you. Mm-hmm. So you keep spending to keep up. Mm-hmm. And you get in trouble. And it really gets you in trouble. We've been there. We've seen it over and over. But we're going to talk today about how to keep up with yourself.
Yes. That's all that matters. The person in the mirror. You know, this whole phrase, Galia, it's interesting. So I did this job in Savannah, Georgia. You know, actors, we have days off between scenes. And I took a ghost tour, which was so cool because there's a lot of graveyards around Savannah, Georgia. So I took this ghost tour and we're walking around and the guide says, do you see that house there with the red door? That's what people used to do back in the old days, a couple hundred years ago. They would pay off their home, and in order to brag to the neighbors that their home was paid off, they would paint their front door red. And that's where the phrase "keeping up with the Joneses" originated, according to my guide on the ghost tour. And I was fascinated. I've always heard that phrase, but wondered where did that start? So that was a way sort of bragging rights, of letting the neighbors know, hey, my house is paid off. So bright red door.
Right. So first of all, did you feel ghosts on the tour? I have to ask.
I did not feel ghosts, but I was very fascinated by this tour because they said back in the day, if a wife didn't like her husband, she would feed him oleander tea, and that would kill him because it was poison.
Okay.
So and I thought, I mean, I would never do that. Of course, never. No, I like chamomile. But there's little tips and things that we learned on the ghost tour. But just the keeping up the Joneses was fascinating. That it's been going back for, hundreds or thousands of years.
Yeah.
People worried what the neighbors think.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness, so many things to think about when you tell me that story, and when I was researching Keeping Up with the Joneses, and it's something that I have seen in my career, I saw it growing up. I've seen it living in New York City. I've seen it living in Connecticut, and there's just different stakes. So I just want to start, and I don't mean to scare you or scare the listeners, but I really want you to think about when you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, I'm going to put a little bit of fear into you. Think about the stakes. Think about what you could risk. So if you buy a home that's too much to handle, that your door is not painted red, and you've got 2 fancy cars that you can't afford in the driveway, what could happen? Well, you could lose that all and have the shame of it. You could, your partner, maybe you don't tell your partner about this, and your partner finds out and they leave you. So you could break up a marriage. You could get divorced. You could be borrowing money for a business that goes under. So you could really lose a lot. And maybe you're borrowing money to send your kids to a school, or you are doing something that you believe you need to have to be successful. So just really think about the stakes when you're doing things to keep up with the Joneses or that you cannot afford. And I don't mean to scare you, but I do think it's important to think about what the stakes are here.
I actually really respect it and find it refreshing when people tell me. I mean, I've had many friends and family members coming out of COVID have said, you know what, we're now going to be a 1-car family. We've decided our priorities are that the wife, don't mean to sound like, hey, it's 1950, the wife. But one of the spouses is going to stay at home and start a business, and they've decided to downsize and have 1 car instead of 2. And they just found the need to not have multiple cars. And when someone tells me that, I think it's so refreshing and so honest that they're making adjustments that fit their family and are in alignment with their values.
When you told me that story, I loved it. I loved it for a few reasons. One is I loved it that we're talking about money, which that I keep talking about in a lot of our different podcasts, like when we talk about relationships or asking for more money at work. But in this case, someone's being honest and they're saying we're downsizing, we're trying to save money. We're not going to be a 2-car family, which maybe in some circles would be frowned upon, or we're trying to save money because we're starting a business. So this really makes me think about, who do you want to surround yourself with?
Yes.
Right? And maybe this is the time to think about, like, look at your circle of friends, even look at your family. And are you surrounding yourself with people that make you live outside your means? Or are you surrounding yourself with people that you want to emulate? Like, do you want to be influenced by these people in a negative way or influenced by them in a positive way?
Yeah, that's really, really interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
And so when I hear about this friend, I'm thinking, I want to have coffee with that friend. I want to hear about the decisions they've made to prioritize their happiness, to prioritize saving money. Like, that to me is more like, gosh, this is somebody that I want in my inner circle. And look, I've been there. I've absolutely been there, where I've lived in a community where, even like I saw kids dress a certain way, or people, had a certain car. And I remember, like, when I first moved to this town in Connecticut, I had this really, really old Subaru, and it got banged up in a car accident, and I didn't know where the body shop was, so I didn't fix it. And, and it's like, was I embarrassed driving it around a little bit? But then I remember, like, finding someone else who had that same car and not caring as much. So I think thinking about, really, who do you want to surround yourself with?
But there's so many examples of this that I was at a dinner party last weekend, and a woman told me she had been to Italy a couple years ago, and the talk in this little town in Rome was that families would, every August, they would feel shame if they could not afford to go away on holiday. And this is a dramatic story, but this is just highlights what people do to keep up with the Joneses. But certain families would board up their home, buy enough food for 3 to 4 weeks, and go live in the cellar of their home and have someone else drive their family car off property, so that when neighbors would come by and townsfolk would come by, they would see that their home was boarded up, and they would assume they're at the south of France on holiday,
Oh my God.
that their family could afford a proper holiday. And they would live in the basement of their home to keep up this lie. And that is an extreme example, but it makes me, it really pierced me. It's so sad.
Right.
That
That's
people,
what I felt.
I
felt
just
sad for these people.
These people would feel that they have to do that. And also, what message to their children? All right, Okay, Charlie, get in the basement for 3 to 4 weeks. Bring your books and bring your flashlight because we want to create a lie so that everybody in the town thinks we have more money than we actually do.
And it's so true that it affects so many. So here, these are people who live in Italy. So I'm assuming that they're, oh my gosh, you live in Italy. How fancy. And you live in a community where people can take the month of August off. So it really affects everyone. You have no idea, and especially in this case, what happens behind closed doors. You have no idea.
Behind boarded closed doors.
Behind boarded closed doors. Do not be mistaken. It affects all income earners, from people who don't have a lot of money to people who have a lot of money. And what, when you were telling me the story, Susan, one of the things that came up for me is sometimes never enough doesn't make us happier. Like you're not going to always be happier. And you're not going to be any happier because you're getting yourself into this appearance of keeping up with the Joneses. Like you will never say, okay, we did it this August. We boarded up our house. We're done. There's always going to be something else.
Right.
There's always going to be another trend. Like maybe they're going to have to borrow a more expensive car, or maybe they're going to have to shop in a fancier store. Mm-hmm. There's always going to be that desire to like acquire more.
And the heaviness, the burden on their shoulders of carrying that lie. So let's say, September rolls around, everybody's back at the bakery in town and they're talking about their holiday. And then what, now you have to cover for yourself when really you were living in the basement eating rice.
Right.
So you're supposed to say, oh yes, France was great. I got a great suntan. Do you want to see my sandals I bought?
Right.
Capri?
Right.
I mean, like what?
Wait, Capri? I thought you went to Nice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just a gerbil wheel of keeping up this dance. That feels exhausting.
Like you're never going to be like, all right, I did it. I'm done. I don't have to do that anymore. Yeah. It really is never going to end. And what you just said really struck a chord is that what message is that to your children? And I actually think a lot of parents don't share that with their children, which is even worse because they're living a lie of lying. They're living a life of lying. They're really holding things back. And I think that is a huge, huge burden. And that's a stake too. So do you really want to carry that on? Is it worth it? Why are you doing that?
Galia, hold that thought while we do an ad.
Freelancers, are you ready to stop wasting fees on your business account? Let me tell you about Lily. It's a new way of banking for freelancers and single business owners. Separate your personal and business expenses with just a swipe. Left for personal, right for business. You'll optimize your taxes, save money, and reduce financial stress. In just 3 minutes, you can join the more than 500,000 freelancers who've already opened a Lily account. No minimum balance, no hidden fees, no impact on your credit score. Sole proprietors and single member LLCs are eligible. Finally, take control of your taxes and spend that newfound time making more money. Sign up today for a special Lily offer on our website, fiscalfirecrackers.com.
I had another friend whose mom, she's from the UK, and her mom would use vegetable dye. So when America went into the war in 1942, a lot of nylons and silks were gone because they were used in the war for parachutes. So women could not have stockings. And that was a real status symbol to have a proper stocking pantyhose, right? So her mom would use dye to paint the back of her leg.
Oh my God.
Straight down. So when she's walking away from you, you would look and think that she could afford stockings. And I thought, I didn't even know that women did this. And then I'm researching it, and they set up in the 1940s in America leg bars where you could go in and they would paint your legs smooth with makeup and draw the line all the way down the back of your thigh, down your calf. So when you walk away, people think you could afford pantyhose.
Oh my God. That is crazy.
Because that way you were wealthy, right? You had money. When really, what would have been great is everybody sat around and goes, guess what? The war's happening. Let's all just say it. We're not going to have pantyhose.
We're not going to wear pantyhose.
We're not going to wear, let's
just make soup together.
Let's make soup and pray and make signs or like But
Right.
no, this has been going on for hundreds of years. I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
absolutely fascinated by the lengths that people will go to.
I know. So there's this actually, I don't want to say it's a new movement, but there's a movement that I've been hearing about for a long time. And then again, when I was researching this podcast, I came upon this and I actually love this movement. It's called the FIRE movement. I was actually telling my girlfriend about it and she's like, oh yes, there's Dr. Fire. There's all these like offshoots of it. So the
What is
FIRE,
that?
I know. So and I would say that if this is something that you're really feeling, you can look for a FIRE movement in your community. So this is financial independence, early retirement.
Oh, it's kind of a support group or like a
Well,
book club
it's a support group, but it's a philosophy. And I would say that, when I was researching it, and I'll give examples that people were probably going to extremes. But number one, they want to be financially independent, which means having very little or no debt. And
Perfect.
so not owing anybody anything. But that's really like not having a mortgage, not having a loan on your car, which not all of us are fortunate enough to have that. Now, obviously, you don't want to be mortgaged to the hilt that you owe so much, but the idea is that they really are like, let me pay off this mortgage as soon as possible. Let me like really live like with zero debt. And then the second is let me save enough so I can have an early retirement. So I can choose at age 40 or 50 years old not to have to work anymore or only work because I want to, not because I have to.
Brilliant.
Now, we're thinking retirement, they probably don't live on that much, so they can retire earlier. So it's a little bit like the chicken or the egg. Like we might not be able to retire or some people might not be able to retire because they need more money. But in this case, they're not living on a lot. So here's some of the things that they do. But I love the idea of that financial independence and early retirement.
No, it's great.
And so if you feel like you're in this keeping up with the Joneses treadmill, or hamster wheel or gerbil, whatever that gerbil wheel is. Let's think about this. So here's some of the things they do. They drive older vehicles for a long period of time. That was one that really stuck with me because I have a car. It's 4 years old. It is paid off. And I kind of want a new car.
It's 4 years old?
It's 4 years old.
How many miles do you have on it?
It has 50,000 miles on it.
Okay.
I don't know if I need it. I don't need a new car. I don't need it. And so it actually made me stop and think about, well, why would I get a new car? And that is either an extra payment or it's money out of my savings account. Anyway, that's number one. They drive older cars for as long as they can, or they purposely live in a place where they can commute by bike or public transportation. So I was like, The second thing is they choose cheaper places to live. Now, I think that's easier said than done because I know for me, I really dictated the quality of a school system by where I chose to live because I have children.
Right.
But I could have made some sacrifices. I could have chosen to live in a place that was a little bit cheaper because I couldn't afford or I didn't want to spend as much on housing. And maybe I would have not the top school, but, the middle of the road school. So that's number two. And the question is, do you want to be the best house on the okay street or do you want to be the okay house on the best street? That was one way that they talked about it.
Interesting.
And then the third is that they really strive to save 30 to 50 or even 70% of their income.
Woo!
So regardless of what they made, and again, most of these people were not high earners. But they said, no matter what, we're going to right away just save 30 to 50, even 70%, and then we're going to live on what's left.
Oh, that's so great.
And I'm telling you, research this. If this is something that even remotely says, oh my gosh, this is going to either help me get away to keep up with myself and not keep up with the Joneses, or this sounds remotely attractive, like right away, I think I'm making the decision about, you know what, I am going to drive my car a little bit longer. Maybe I'll put off buying a new car for 2 years, 3 years. And I know that for me, especially that when my kids go to college, which is kind of around the corner, I am going to move to a cheaper place to live. Absolutely. I am going to downsize. I am going to sell my house. Absolutely. So these are two things like to kind of like take that albatross off my neck. And not that I necessarily feel that, but at the end of the day, I do have commitments that maybe I don't want those commitments anymore.
Right.
And look, we're giving you a lot of tips here. I would say if you can make one move here. So for example, like if you love to travel, so maybe this family in Italy, maybe they go away in July, which is kind of like if August is high season, go away in September, like what's called the shoulder season. Like I remember I went to South America a few years ago and we went in October and there was nobody there. the hotels were throwing things at us. They were, gave us a free night. They gave us champagne at the meals. And because it was October, there was nobody there. So yes, you might be limited by your children's vacations, but you know what? If your kids are little, take them out of school if it's cheaper. Go to Disney World like that first week of November. Go at a time when it's going to cost you less and tell everybody about it. Don't be embarrassed.
Exactly.
That you travel during shoulder season.
Stop boarding up your home. Get rid of those nails and those wood boards. Be free.
Yes,
be free.
Exactly. And by the way, I guarantee you, if you tell someone about it, they're going to be like, that is so cool. I'm going to do that.
You know what I would do if I was in that town in Italy? I would just say, guess what? The entire month of August, it's an open house. Bring a casserole, bring your favorite rice dish, bring your bottles of wine and clay pitchers, because our house is open because guess what? We're not traveling.
Yeah.
We're making the choice to stay here. We're choosing to live within our means, and we're proud of it.
Yeah.
Oh, we're so proud of it.
And then the other tip is buy used. Buy used cars, buy used clothing, buy used furniture. Like some people call it vintage, some people call it consignment. But if you're trying to save money, or if you're spending too much and you have nothing to show for it except for a fancy car or fancy clothing that you can't afford, trade it in. No one's going to know that it's used, by the way. No one's going to know that it's pre-owned. No one is going to know that that gorgeous jacket you've got on, you bought up at ThredUp or Poshmark or The Real or Consignment Shop or thrift stores.
Nobody cares.
Or Goodwill. Nobody cares. But you'll have more money in the bank.
And the
you'll
people
be
that
less
care,
stressed.
by the way, the people who care, I give you the middle finger if you care whether my jacket is new or old. Because honestly, the friends that I have, they don't give a rat's ass. They don't care. I mean, my family circle and my friend circle do not care if you have new clothes or old or an old car or used or leased or who cares, right?
I know. They really don't. And you might think they care. And you know what? If they do care, while you're shopping, shop for new friends.
Put a sign in the yard.
Right,
I'm taking applications for new friends.
Yeah.
Open your ears and a money market account. It's time for Galia's Dollars and Cents.
So if this is something that's striking a chord with you, and again, this affects all income earners, is number one, just think about the stakes. Think about the toll this is taking on your health, on potentially your marriage, on your children. I guarantee you there is a stake and a toll here. So really think about what you're doing here.
In looking to Galia, I think of all the things I've said yes to over the years where I really didn't want to do it. I remember graduating from college, and there was a gal I didn't even know that well, and she said, "Would you be in my wedding? Would you be the maid of honor?" I didn't know her that well. I still can't. This is awful. I can't remember her name. I right now I'm 50 and I have a great memory. I cannot remember her name because I didn't know her that well. I was in a couple of film classes with her and journalism class. She got married right out of college, and so now I'm in this wedding, and weddings cost. And I should have just said, no, I'm busy. Or so.
Or how about just no? No.
No is a complete sentence. The end.
No.
Full stop.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you for thinking of me, but no.
But I remember what I did.
I can't do that. I can tell you to do it, but I can't do that.
Okay. Well, would you be in my wedding? No.
No.
So I remember having to get this dress. All those dresses cost money, and
I know.
the brides
and the
don't buy
shoes.
them. The shoes and the thing and the flights and I remember this dress was just the color. It was kind of like an orange. If peanut butter was orange and not brown, it was kind of an orangey marmalade color. And I have to be honest, I knew I was going to wear it for 22 minutes walking down the aisle, right? And then we were supposed to change into some other party dress. I kept the tag in it.
Good.
And I just prayed when I walked down the aisle that it didn't flap out the side of my back.
Good for
I
you.
kept walking up and I just kept that tag in it. And I walked down the aisle, tucked it in, taped it down. And I mean, that's not good to wear clothes and return to the store. That's tacky. But I was 22. I didn't know her that well. And I look back and I go, you know what? I should have just said no because I ended up having to buy the shoes and buy party dress.
A bra.
After.
I always had to buy a new bra with that would fit. I don't know. That was my.
Yeah. A new bra for every one of their weddings. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, there's things now I look back and go, you know, I could have just said no and just be a bridesmaid, be in people's weddings who are dear and true that I've known for a long, long time.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and we've all made mistakes. Trust me. I have made mistakes keeping up with the Joneses. I have found it much easier when I surround myself with people that I want to emulate rather than ones who influence me to live outside your means. So find your people.
Yes.
Find your people.
And I love like you talking about where do you want to spend your money? What is important to you? And you do what makes you feel good, right? With your money.
Right. And I do know you that you wouldn't do it if you couldn't afford it.
Right. Oh, I would.
And I will
right.
say that I've probably gotten my kids so scared about money because we talk about it all the time that even now at 16, 17, they say, well, can we afford this? And I say, honey, like we'll go out to dinner and we'll just go out for sushi, which is a big deal. But, you know, sushi's not cheap. And Hannah's like, can we afford this? And I'll say, if we couldn't afford it, I wouldn't do it. Do trust me on that. We're not going into debt. And I'm choosing to spend and buy this expensive dinner.
Mm-hmm. That's what we would say. Like we've allotted this money for this pleasurable experience.
Yeah.
But,
the other tip that we had suggested is the FIRE movement. So check that out. The financial independence, early retirement. So that's really making a big, big change and saying, can this affect my life? Such as driving your car for a longer time, finding a cheaper place to live, or just really saving a significant portion and buying used, whether it's used car, used clothing. I'm not saying do all of that because those are all pretty extreme things. But if you do one, I guarantee you, you're going to feel it. Lastly, you're not going to be any happier if you keep up with the Joneses. There's always going to be another trend to latch onto.
Absolutely. Galia, we have a fiscal firecracker letter. Should
Woohoo!
I dive in?
Want more pecuniary pleasure? Let's read a letter.
Dear fiscal firecrackers. I'm glad that she didn't start it with Dear the Joneses, right? All right. I am getting divorced and I don't even know where to begin. He handled most of the finances, and while I worked, I don't really know where everything is. Signed, Becky, who is recently separated. Oh,
Becky, thanks for reaching out.
Yeah.
And I know when I got divorced, everyone was like, I'm sorry. No, we're not sorry, Becky. This is a new chapter.
We shouldn't say we're sorry when someone gets divorced? What should we say? Say, I support.
How are you doing? How can I support you?
How can I support you? That's my new thing I'll say now.
Yeah,
okay.
How can I support you? I don't know if that was what I wanted to hear, but I know when people said I was sorry, I was like, don't be sorry. This is a new chapter.
Okay.
Becky, so there's two things you can do right away. Number one is do a budget right away, a true budget of what you need on a monthly basis. And I will say this is not a typical run-of-the-mill budget. This isn't just like what your rent or mortgage and your food cost is, but also put a line in there as to what you need to save to make sure you have enough for retirement.
Yes.
So if your budget is $4,000 a month, then this new budget is $5,000 a month because you need to save to make sure you have enough for retirement.
Okay.
So that's number one, is really, really be realistic about what you need. You might not get it. You might not have enough, but be very clear and realistic about everything that you need to live your life alone, or if you have children, with your children from now on. And then the second, and get help if you need it, either hire a financial planner or get a good friend, but start getting every statement that you own, that you might own together, and really make an effort to understand everything you've got. Because that's where people get held up, is number one, with the budget. They don't know what they need, and they really trusted someone else to do it. And then two, they don't know what they've got. So he might have handled the finances, but you should have access to the statements. You should have access to the bank accounts. You should have access to the mortgage if you have one, or any other statements of anything that you own or expenses, and really take that time and get a friend, because it might be overwhelming to do alone. So get a friend or hire a financial planner or hire a bookkeeper and say, let me really print out and get a true handle on everything that I've got. And then you can move forward and decide who gets what and this and that and what should I do going forward. But if you just start with, what do I need on a monthly basis or annual basis to live on? And what do I own? Don't worry about what the investments are. Just really get a handle on what everything is.
What are your thoughts about hiring a forensic accountant to, I mean, I've heard of people hiding money overseas or hiding it in different states. Is that something that a spouse should do?
I don't have a lot of experience in that. I would say that if money is really hidden, it can be really hidden well.
Because there's some dirty dogs out there.
Yes, there are. I mean, where I would say if it's really hidden overseas, it's going to be hard to find it. But sometimes a forensic accountant can help if money is hidden in corporations or in businesses that are domestic, but maybe under different people's names. Oh gosh, if this person is really doing that, it might be hard to get access to it, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I would say don't forget about insurance. There might be life insurance policies or insurance policies that you weren't aware of, or that were hidden, or that weren't hidden. But very often that's sometimes found money is under these insurance policies, whether it's life insurance or other types of insurance policies.
And also, can't you find out if you're the beneficiary on certain accounts too? And how would that work in divorce?
Well, it really depends on your state. It doesn't matter if you're the beneficiary. It really matters is the account under his name or is it under both your names? But legally, everything is under both your names if it was acquired during the marriage.
Oh,
and especially if there's no prenup. Mm-hmm.
Good to know.
Yeah. Becky, you're going to be fine. You are going to be fine.
As long as she keeps up with herself and not the Joneses. The Joneses don't exist.
No,
They're not
they
real.
don't. And it's really one chapter closes, the other chapter opens in so many areas in your life, especially financial. Another great podcast in the book.
Yes. Oh, Galia, I learned so much.
Join us next time for more Fiscal Firecrackers. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. Hope you learned about how to keep up with yourself and not with the Joneses.
Do not paint your door red. Instead, just go buy a mutual fund. Yeah. We'll see you next time.
Fiscal Firecrackers, yeah.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, The Fiscal Firecrackers. While this podcast contains information about finances and investments, financial results discussed herein are not necessarily typical and are not a guarantee of future success. The creators of this podcast make no warranty, guarantee, or representation as to the accuracy or sufficiency of the information featured in this podcast. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. The podcast should not be considered professional advice and is not a substitute for a financial planner or investment banker. Please seek professional guidance and do your own research before investing. And this will be on the final exam.